Going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show on DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forums Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forums Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show, taking a look back at racing from Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th, 2018. Happened to be the weekend of the Kentucky Derby, the 144th running of the Derby. Before we dive into all the recaps, if you listen to this in podcast form, you have YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Most of you know the situation as far as replays are concerned. People are very, very protective over them. So this time of year, whether it be NBC or whether it be Churchill Downs, makes it very difficult for us to get access to them. So you know where to go to watch the races. If you haven't seen the races, where you been? You missed out on Friday and Saturday, all sorts of fun stuff. We will go through and discuss these races in depth, though, particularly the grade ones on Friday and Saturday. Those will be the ones that we'll do the in-depth recaps for. We'll also go over 3 grade stakes races from Sunday afternoon across the country. And this week's stakes montage is going to be loaded top to bottom. So let's start off with the Kentucky Derby. Let's take a look at that field. You had obviously 20 horses that were going to go postward, and ultimately Justify is the horse that gets the job done for Bob Baffert and company. A very deserving winner, pays $7.80 on top. Good Magic runs a good second in here for Chad Brown. I don't think anybody can complain about the effort that he put forward, and again, I will be the first to admit I was wrong about Good Magic, but we'll dive into that more in a little bit. He went off at odds of 9-1, and Audible, one of the 4 horses in here for Todd Pletcher, runs third, 7-1 on the tote board. Your 4th place horse, if you were playing the Superfecta or you were interested in that, was My Son Instilled Regard at odds of 85-1, which he never in a million years should have been. Neither here nor there. He runs 4th. Let's take a look at your Kentucky Derby winner. He is unbeaten, a perfect 4 for 4 from 4 lifetime starts. His name is Justify. He's over $2 million in career earnings, owned by China Horse Club, Head of Plains Partners, LLC, Starlight Racing, and Windstar Farm, trained by Bob Baffert, bred by John D. Gunther in Kentucky, ridden to victory by Mike Smith. Pedigree at the bottom of the page, he is by Scat Daddy out of a Ghost Zapper mare named Stage Magic. As far as the details of this horse and this race in particular are concerned, 103 Beyer speed figure for your Derby champion, Justify. And the thing that made this race so impressive was the fact that he was up on what Timeform US has color-coded as hot fractions from the half, the three-quarter, and the mile call. He was pushing the fractions and then eventually taking the lead by a length and a half, and he still finished with one of the best final quarter miles in the entire race. Came home in 26.85 over just an absolute mess out there, the main track at Churchill Downs beneath the Twin Spires. It was really, really unfortunate that the weather did not cooperate on Saturday afternoon. But from a speed standpoint, from an effort standpoint, this is about as impressive a Kentucky Derby winner as you're going to find, where he goes out there, he does all the dirty work, he puts away the other pace horses are absolutely nowhere to be found. The only other horse that was relatively close is Good Magic, and he basically flicked him away, gave him the old stiff arm and said, no, not coming close. Actually extends as they go down the lane. 2.5 lengths ultimately is the final margin of victory. 127 Timeform US rating. What else is there to say? This horse is really, really in rarefied air now. Now, I'm not suggesting you want to say he's an all-time great. I'm not going that far. But I think you just need to look and see what we have right here. We have a horse that's raced 4 times in his career. He has earned triple-digit Beyers all 4 times. He didn't debut until February. He has triple-digit Beyers from 7 to 10 furlongs. This is a very uncommon sort of horse that we're seeing right now. And I guess the thing, too, that maybe to me is the big... And you have to start putting a horse like American Pharoah, talk about the two. You can make comparisons now very easily. I think the difference for me, watching Justify as opposed to watching American Pharoah, to me, American Pharoah was brilliant. He did everything easily. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't look like Justify is doing it easily, but I think there's he looks more like just a racehorse. To me, and anyone, if you get to see American Pharoah up close and run, you can go back and watch all the replays. That's easy enough, where you're watching, his ears are up almost the entirety of the race, even when he's asked to run. But when you watched him up close, it was effortless. This horse, he looks like he's running, but he's just very, very talented. He's very, very fast, and you consider he's so inexperienced, and he's able to overcome all of this. 155,000 people, just basically a monsoon, dumped almost 3 inches of rain in Louisville. 19 other horses, good horses in there. This, again, most people were looking at this saying one of the best derbies in years. I don't have any knocks about Justify. I didn't like the price. He almost went off at 3-1, went off at 5-2. If you told me tomorrow, if we ran this race again and we didn't know the outcome, I still wouldn't tell you to bet him. I still think it was probably a bad bet at 2-1. But at the same time, man, it is really hard to knock a horse that is this talented, this gifted, has done as much as he has in such a short amount of time. He has the connections. Great ride from Mike Smith. Be aggressive. Think you're on the best horse, go. It was reminiscent to Bodemeister. I'm going to say it was somewhere between the two, between Bodemeister and American Pharoah. Pharoah sat off of a relatively tepid pace. Bodemeister was out there actually cutting out the fast fractions. Justify sat just off of basically a target, a horse that you knew that he was going to take over. And by the way, promises fulfilled and finished 15th. You look at this chart. You look at the top two, and then 3rd through 10th are all horses that came from at least the back half of the field. And the fact that Justify just went on with it, fantastic effort, a well-deserved victory in the Derby, and a deserving champion. And you know what? He's going to be 1-5 in 2 weeks at Pimlico. He's going to be, I don't think he'll be 1-9. He'll be 1-5. It's going to be a really short field. Chad Brown has said maybe not for Good Magic, but Justify, just a fantastic effort winning the 144th Kentucky Derby. Good Magic. I was wrong about him. I didn't love him coming into this race. I hadn't loved really any of his races. The Breeders' Cup was very good. This was, to me, the best race of his career, considering he was relatively close to that pace. He went after, tried to take a shot at Justify, and just got flicked away like he was nothing. And he is a very talented horse. Came home in 27.02. The problem going forward now is you're going to have to deal with Justify. I also have some concerns about distance with this horse. Now, if you wheel him back in 2 weeks, initially Chad said no. Now it's kind of him and hawing. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. You watch the stretch run, and part of it is probably because, look, they were all tired, but he's getting pretty drifty, and I do wonder if we're thinking, like most of these horses, they're going to take a few weeks off, come back for the Belmont Stakes, going a mile and a half. A mile and a half might not work for this horse, Good Magic. Mile and 3/16 might be doable. The problem is you're going to have to deal with the big boy again. So we'll find out. I think it could be a scenario where if you do run him in the Preakness, he goes, gives his best effort. Maybe he wins, maybe he doesn't. Seems unlikely based on what we saw on Saturday, but you never know. And then after that, you give him a little bit of a breather and you get him ready for Saratoga for the races like the Jim Dandy and the Travers and whatnot. Good Magic, again, admit when you're wrong. Good Magic, a very, very talented horse. Great job by Chad Brown. Why Chad is one of the best trainers in the world, not just the United States, in the world. Very good effort from Good Magic. Audible, I thought, ran pretty well, and I know some people wanted to go through and say that the trip wasn't ideal. May not have been, but it was almost reminiscent to his run in the Florida Derby, where he was sort of mid-pack, and then he got shuffled a little bit. It seemed like he was losing touch with the field toward the rear. Then he starts to make a move up the backside, and on the far turn, sure, he got stacked up behind 3 or 4 horses there briefly, but Javier Castellano, to me, one of the smartest and slickest moves in this entire race. He quickly shot the horse down to the rail, and he squeezed up the inside. I understand anyone that says, oh, maybe did it cost him second? It could have. Certainly could have if he had clean run the entire way and didn't need to alter course so severely. But at the same time, he's never going to win this race. Very good effort from Audible. And from the speed figure standpoint, I don't have any real beef about it. And I know a lot of people are looking at it saying, well, how could you possibly run 204-1 and get a buyer figure of 103? Well, you got to keep in mind, they don't run mile and a quarter races. And they also don't run them in the midst of a monsoon. And when they win as fast as they did early, they're going to come home really, really slow. I think if you're just using the projection method, and look, I hate races that get projected as much as anyone, but with the Derby, you have to project it. There's nothing else to go off of. You can't compare it to, a 7 furlong race or a mile and a 16th race or anything else like that. And then especially with the time between dirt races. The Pathé Mile and the Kentucky Derby, there was more than 2 hours between the two races. So you kind of have to project this one. And when you look and you think Justify could have run his race, you think Good Magic could have run his race, you think Audible could have run his race. Instilled Regard, again, I don't know why he was the longest shot on the board. I'm not sitting here, look, we'll talk about my pick Mendelssohn in a little bit, but he shouldn't have been 85-1. You could have made it certainly a case where he should have been in the 31 range, and I think that's where he belonged. 85-1 was stupid. He goes off, and a 97 for him is totally conceivable. That is not something outrageous. My boy Jack basically ran his race, a 93. To me, from a projection standpoint, this race stacks up very, very well, and from a figure standpoint, I have no complaints. I have no arguments. I think this is probably pretty much what you're looking at. Audible had paired up 99s. He earns a 100 here. Good Magic's best race in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He earned a 100. He gets a 100 here. And Justify, guess what? This was only, this is the third best of his 4 lifetime starts, according to Speed Figures. Just think about that. He ran a 103. He's run 104 and 107 already. His slowest race is a 101. I mean, we're dealing with a very, very special horse. Whether he does nothing else ever again, which hopefully that's not the case. But if he never does anything again, I think this might be the greatest beginning to a horse's career ever. I can't think of anything better, can you? Fire away at me on Twitter, at Bernier_Matt. If you can think of a horse that has done more in this amount of time, and not only has accomplished more, but has run as fast as he is, I can't think of a horse. Arrogate didn't do this. Arrogate took a few starts to really all of a sudden blossom. American Pharaoh was always brilliant, but I don't know that he accomplished this much in this short amount of time running this fast. He's done some very uncommon things. Very, very talented horse, Justify. Some other runners to briefly touch on before we move on, because there's a lot to get to, and this is probably going to be a little bit of a lengthy one. My boy Jack thought he ran his race. To me, just an asinine underlay. Unbelievable the amount of money that my boy Jack took. I've maintained I'd like to see him on turf at some point. Hofberg, there's someone on Twitter, and I've got to address the Twitter people, Twitterverse right now. I had tweeted weeks ago that the Derby is the best and worst time of the year for horse racing. And Saturday is case in point, because you can look at the Mendelssohn situation, you can look at any other opinion that you may or may not have. And if you're just looking at the race objectively, you make a comment and everyone and their brother that doesn't agree with the horse, not even so much, if you're just taking the objectivity out of it, the subjectivity, that's what gets people being stupid. Flat out stupid. Some comments. I have a guy tweet something at me, and he's chirped in the past. Whatever, I get it. It's part of the gig. But when you tell me that a horse doesn't, oh no, he didn't finish well at all. Well, how can he not finish well at all if he has the third fastest quarter mile in the race, final quarter, and he's only beaten out by 0.04 of a second and 0.07 of a second as far as that is concerned? And the horse that you're comparing him to, for me, Bravazzo, almost 4 lengths slower for the final quarter. But you're going to tell me that Bravazzo finished better than this horse did, Hofberg? Stop. That's just not accurate. And I can only bash my head against the wall so many times. I understand people have favorites. The Mendelssohn thing. If you didn't like him before, it's so easy to sit there after and say, knew it. That's garbage. He never had a chance to run. I'm not saying he would have won the race, but he never had a chance. So for you to sit there and tell me afterward that I knew all along he had no chance. You might not have liked him, but you did not know that he didn't have a chance. No one knew that. No one knew. Nothing knew. You have to run the race. Just because you don't like something before it happens doesn't mean that when it doesn't actually happen that you were correct, especially in this instance. It's one thing if you say, you know what, there's going to be a horse that goes out there, I think he's going to get roasted in the pace stool. Okay, sometimes that'll happen. But to tell me that you knew that this horse couldn't run all along, knew he couldn't run, and you're using the Derby as the example for Mendelssohn, that's dumb. That is dumb, and I don't really want to talk to you if that's what your argument is. That is the dumbest thing I've heard in quite some time. But again, that's what the Derby does. The Derby brings out the best and the worst as far as just everything. I think Hofberg's really good. I think this was a very, very good effort from him. He was stacked up and behind horses, finished really well once they got him out into the clear. They're going to wait for the Belmont. And if you think that there's going to be more horses showing up the Belmont, certainly in the Preakness, Hofberg is probably going to be one of the alternatives to Justify. Lone Sailor was stacked up a little bit on the inside. Thought finally when he's able to squeak through, thought he ran on well enough. I think he's a nice little horse. I think there's a scenario where there's a race for him down the road. Vino Rosso, wide and apparently had all sorts of mud in his eyes. Not the most comfortable trip for this horse. Once he finally got to the clear, he started running on again at the end of the race. I thought it was a good effort from him. Bolt d'Oro, they took a shot early on. I understand you didn't want to let Justify, the horse that you need to beat, get too far away, but perhaps he was a little bit too close. Sounds like they're going to totally take foot off the throttle, wait, and look for a race like the Pacific Classic down at San Diego and Del Mar. Miserable trip for Enticed. I thought Enticed, this is just a complete draw line through. And Mendelssohn, this is just a line out. This does nothing. I'm not going to get back into that. You can find all that nonsense on Twitter. But if you didn't like him before, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to, and I tried to explain that. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. It's your opinion. But don't tell me that you knew, he can't run, knew it. This isn't the race that you can use to go off of that. No, none of us know how good he is as far as the United States is concerned because he never got a chance. Never got a chance. Got sideswiped out of the gate. And then after that, there's no reason to ride him. And when more started putting, yeah, sure. Maybe you would expect him, don't finish last. The minute this horse wasn't picking his feet up at all, and by the way, if you'd sideswipe Justify out of the gate, he ain't winning this race like that. There's no way. You don't do that. If that happened, Moore's going to wrap up on him. He's worth way too much, and they'll live to fight another day. The Derby itself, it's to me, it's also the best and the worst horse race that we have. With so many horses. And look, the point system has done a very good job of showcasing the favorite, making the favorite the most likely win candidate. I believe they're 6 for 6 now. The Derby, very recent memory anyway, you've been able to get formful results. And formful results, I prefer a formful result. Simply because, to me, okay, then the best horse must have won, or the better horses must have performed well. I don't like races where it's a complete crapshoot. Then you factor in a monsoon, and look, that's not nobody can control that. But just the Derby, it's the best and worst event that we have, and it's one of those things that I'm glad it's once a year. And then we move on to the Preakness and the Belmont, and then all the other good racing that comes over the summer. But the Kentucky Derby, it is a race unlike any other. And we had a performance unlike any other on Saturday afternoon. Justify for Bob Baffert and Mike Smith gets the job done, wins Derby 144 with a 103 Beyer speed figure. Race 11 on Saturday was the Turf Classic. 1 1/8 on a very wet turf course. It was listed officially as yielding. Let's take a look at the field. 9 of them were signed on. Your favorite at post was 8-5 Beach Patrol, a horse that was just about a half length away from winning the Breeders' Cup Turf last year. The best turf horse that we had here in North America, maybe with the exception of World Approval. They were 1A and 1B last year. He was going to be the horse they were all going to need to beat. He had a beautiful outside draw, figured to be forwardly placed. He was, and he still got beat by a very, very talented horse called Yoshida. Yoshida gets the job done in the Turf Classic at odds of 9-1, just nearly 10-1. Beach Patrol runs a good second at 8-5, and the third place finisher from well off the pace is Synchrony, coming in from Mike Stidham. 4-1 were his odds. As far as Yoshida is concerned, let's take a look at his horse card. He's only been out of the exacta one time from 8 lifetime starts. He's 4 of 8 lifetime, $846,700 in career earnings. Boy, similar connections here, huh? Take a look at the owner group of the Derby winner, Justify. Take a look at the owner group here of Yoshida. China Horse Club, Windstar Farm, LLC, Head of Plains Partners. Looks familiar. Trained by Bill Mott. Bred by Northern Farm in Japan. Ridden to victory by Jose Ortiz. And you can see the pedigree. He's by Heart's Cry, who's Japanese. And you can see he's out of a Canadian frontier mare named Hilda's Passion. We're all familiar with what Hilda's Passion did here in the United States. So this is truly a worldly sort of pedigree for this horse, Yoshida. From a speed figure standpoint and from all of the big numbers and details that we're concerned with, He didn't come home particularly quick, but again, over this bog, not going to hold that against him. Came home in 13:05. 106 Beyer speed figure, 127 time form US rating. Time form had the fractions listed as just straight away, standard, nothing too crazy, nothing too fast, nothing too slow. Beach Patrol earns a 103 and a 126 time form US rating, comes home in 13:09 for the final eighth of a mile. And Synchrony earns a 98 and a 124. So I think this was a good race all around from the top three horses. Synchrony popped to his left lead there late in stretch. I think it was a combination of probably... look, he's a little bit of an ouchie horse. He has been for quite some time, but I think more so trying to close into just that absolute bog of a turf course. It got to be difficult for him. I'm sure he was just feeling it at the end. Popped to the left lead there. Beach Patrol, no real excuse, but I think this is a race that he can build on and move forward to bigger and better things. I also think maybe distance-wise, getting more distance out to a mile and a quarter, mile and a half, maybe that's when you really see him flourish. Yoshida, it sounds like they are going to be sending this horse over to Royal Ascot to run in the Queen Anne. And with his pedigree and with what he's already accomplished here, now he's a Grade 1 winner here in the United States, a win over there or a good showing from a stud standpoint, he becomes much more intriguing. It's also worth noting what his dam was a dirt sprinter. So the fact that this horse has really excelled at middle distances on turf, there's a lot to like here about a horse like Yoshida going forward, and that's why there are so many partners involved in the ownership group here. If he goes over there, gives a good account of himself in the UK, he's certainly a horse that you've got to put on the short list of main players as far as middle distance races are concerned. I believe Elliott Walden already brought up, you want to be thinking of a race like the Breeders' Cup Mile when it's all said and done. Nice to know that he can handle the Churchill Downs turf course. We'll find out what the condition will be 6 months from now, the first Saturday in November, beneath the Twin Spires for the Breeders' Cup. But long way to go between now and then. A big effort from Yoshida. Everyone else, I don't really have much else to say about this race. I don't think the trips were too bad. Kurlov might have been in a little bit tight down on the inside, turning for home, but he wasn't kicking on. I think it was a pretty straightforward race. Yoshida had a nice trip. Beach Patrol had the perfect trip. Synchrony had to come a little bit wide with a run, but at the same time, that's kind of what his running style is. I think that everybody gave a good account of themselves. Yoshida gets the job done in the Turf Classic with a 106 Beyer speed figure. First of the Grade 1s on Saturday at Churchill Downs was the Humana Distaff, 7/8 of a mile for the older fillies and mares. Let's take a look at that field. 7 were signed on. Your post-time favorite, you had 3 horses go off at 5-2. You had Finley's Lucky Charm, Lewis Bay, American Gal. They all exited the Madison Grade 1 event at Keeneland, in which there was just a blanket finish across the wire. So it was take your pick. You were going to have 2.5 to 1 on any one of those 3 if you wanted them. The question was, which one was the most trustworthy? Who do you think was going to work at the best trip? Who's going to handle the sloppy track? Well, ultimately, we found out that American Gal was the one best suited for it. She gets the job done at odds of 2.9 to 1. She beats Ivy Bell, going out for Todd Pletcher for the second time. She gave a good account of herself, ran second at odds of 4 to 1. And then Lewis Bay does what Lewis Bay always does. Finds 1 or 2 a little bit better than her. Runs a good third, comes with an honest effort, but just not quite as good as the top 2. Runs third again at odds of 5-2. And Finley's Lucky Charm, got to be honest, a little bit of a disappointing effort from her. She fades to run fourth at odds of 5-2. Let's take a look more at the winner. This is the horse card for American Gal. She's 5 of 8 at lifetime, over $904,000 in career earnings, just shy of $905. Owned by Kaleem Shah, bred by Kaleem Shah, Inc. in Kentucky, trained by Simon Callahan, ridden to victory by Jose Ortiz. A big day for Jose Ortiz Saturday afternoon at Churchill Downs. You can see the pedigree at the bottom of the page by Concord Point out of a Ghost Zapper mare named American Story. As far as the details are concerned, American Gal 96 Beyer, 125 time form U.S. rating, came home in 12.75 for the final eighth of a mile. Ivy Bell, 91 Beyer, 122 time form U.S. rating, came home in 12.73. Lewis Bay and Finley's Lucky Charm, 86 and 85 Beyers respectively. As far as the time form numbers are concerned, Finley's Lucky Charm actually faster than Lewis Bay because of the pace situation. Finley's Lucky Charm with a 120, Lewis Bay with a 118. But when you look and see how fast the top 2 finished, as opposed to, I say how fast, again, dirt racing, it's not, people use the term turn of foot. Turn of foot exists on turf, not on dirt. They don't quicken on dirt. It's who slows down slower or faster. On turf, they actually do accelerate late. But on dirt, it's who's going slower, slowest. You follow me? You're not actually going faster. So the fact that American Gal and Ivy Bell, they finished in 12:75 and 12:73, and Lewis Bay and Finley's Lucky Charm finished in 13:26 and 13:24. Doesn't mean that those top two were kicking away. It's just that they weren't slowing down as quickly as those other two. Follow me? Another little pet peeve of mine. This is also the pet peeve recap show for me. It's not a turn of foot on dirt, only on turf. On dirt, you're just slowing down less quickly than everyone else. American Gal, though, very, very willing and deserving winner of this race. She pops back to her left lead late. A little bit of a concern for me there, but she's rock solid. She's never done anything wrong. Again, we talked about it when we looked at the horse card. I mean, she's been in the money in 7 out of 8 lifetime starts. She's grade 1 place, I believe, going 2 turns. She's a grade 1 winner now, going 1 turn. There's a lot to like about her, and you've got to assume that she's going to have all of the big dances on her card here. I know Simon Callahan has campaigned her, let's say, sporadically. I know she's had some injury issues as well, so perhaps that's part of it. So I don't know that you're going to get a long campaign from her, but I'm sure they'll work their way back from the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. It happens to be at Churchill Downs. It's nice to know that, again, she can handle the racetrack. And she's shipped all over the place, and she's run well. She shipped to Belmont. She shipped to Saratoga. Now she's shipped to Churchill. We know that she can run in Southern California. She's won at Los Al. I believe she's won at Santa Anita. So American Gal is just all around a very, very nice racehorse, and she goes out and she gets the job done here. Ivy Bell, again, I thought she ran very well, all things considered. Second time going out for Pletcher. She is what she is. She's going to be that low 90 type. I like her. I've always been a big fan of hers. Think she is talented and think there are races for her. Lewis Bay, I said she does what she does. I don't mean that as in any disrespect, but she is much better used underneath than on top. She very often finds one or two that are better than her. Finley's Lucky Charm, again, disappointing effort from her. I mean, she got her grade 1. She's worth her weight in gold. She's a nice horse, but a little bit disappointed to see her fade as badly as she did, considering American Gal was also right out there with her. And Sky Diamond's a very disappointing effort. I liked her in here in a race that I didn't particularly love anyone. I wanted to give Sky Diamonds a look in here. A little bit of an odd ride from Mike Smith. She broke alertly, and then he wrangled her back, and then when he tried to come with a run, there was nothing there. But again, this, in the grand scheme of things, this was a pretty slow pace. Opening quarter in 23, half in 45 and 3, 3/4 in 9 and 2. But I don't think there's really any denying who the best horse in this race was, and a deserving winner, grade 1 winner at that in the Humana Distaff. That is American Gal, 96 buyer, 125 time Form US rating. Main event on Friday. The 3-year-old fillies took center stage, 1 1/8 on the main track, the field for the Kentucky Oaks. There were 14 girls signed on. This was an interesting race from a betting standpoint. You had 2 horses that dominated. You had Midnight Bisou coming in from the West Coast. You had Monomoy Girl on the heels of a win in the grade 1 Ashland at Keeneland. And then outside of them, you could have gotten a pretty good number on anyone else. And you had a really, really incredible stretch duel. And it didn't happen to involve both of the favorites. One of them was involved, but it had also an outsider. Ultimately, Monomoy Girl is the one that prevails and gets the job done by a half length over Wonder Godot. A giant effort from her, and a tip of the cap to Dan Illman. Illman has said all along that he goes, Wonder Godot, she's going to run big in the Oaks, going to run big at the Oaks. I keep saying she wants synthetic, she wants turf, she wants synth, she wants turf. She ran her eyeballs out here. That was a big effort. She runs second behind Monomoy Girl, and third is the second, or I don't want to say the second favorite. She was actually the favorite in the race, but the other favorite, the alternative, Midnight Bisou. She goes off just under 5-2, and she is the favorite, and she runs third beneath Mike Smith. Let's talk about Monomoy Girl, the winner of the Kentucky Oaks. She's a 3-year-old filly. She's really done not a lot wrong in her career. She's 6-7 lifetime, never been out of the exacta, over $1.1 million in career earnings. Owned by Michael Dubb, Monomoy Stables LLC, the Elkstone Group LLC, and Bethlehem Stables LLC. Trained by Brad Cox, bred by FPF LLC and Highfield Ranch in Kentucky. Ridden victory by Florent Giroux in the pedigree by Tapazar out of a Henny Hughes mare named Drummette. From a figure standpoint, 97 buyer speed figure, 125 time Form US rating, at the final 1/8 of a mile in 12:46. Wonder Godot gets a 96 and a 123 time Form US rating. Worth noting that the folks over at Time Form US have Churchill Downs main track on Friday as slightly speed friendly, which would have played into the hooves of someone like a Monomoy Girl, and even Wonder Godot, because she got into the run early enough with Johnny Velasquez. The third and fourth place finishers came from farther out of it, that being Midnight Bisou and Eskimo Kisses. We'll talk about each one of them more momentarily. Wonder Godot, she got bumped in mid-stretch, popped to her left lead. That she popped over was a product of being bumped. They took a look at it. I don't think there should have been a change. I think it was the right call to leave it as is. It would have needed to be something egregious. To me, that just wasn't. It wasn't like a Bayern instance, in the Breeders' Cup Classic a number of years ago where he took a left-hand turn. This was just, it is what it is, unfortunately. I don't think it stopped the momentum of Wonder Godot. I think they both threw it down. And you know what? Even after that little bump, she had every opportunity to go on by, and she didn't, which is another thing that's developing for her that I'm a little bit concerned about, is Wonder Godot developing a little bit of a hang in her. I hate to use the word hang, but you go back between this race, you go back to the Fantasy, where she really had no excuse there. You go back to a couple of the races down at the fairgrounds, where she would loom up and then just kind of flatten out. We're not there yet, not full-fledged. But if she did it again, then I would start to get a little bit concerned. Monomoy Girl, she got turned away by a really, really good horse. I still think Wonder Godot would be better on probably an artificial surface, on the synthetic. And if not synthetic, try the turf. But just something to keep an eye on for her going forward. A big effort and a really good training job by Mark Cassie. Midnight Bisou, 91 Beyer, 117 time form U.S. rating. She got sandwiched pretty good at the beginning of this race. It's not the reason that she didn't run any better than she did, but it's something to just keep in the back of your mind. Also worth noting, the connections, the ownership group, they have said it's nothing that Bill Spar did or didn't do. But this filly is no longer in Bill Spar's care. She's going to be transferred over to Steve Asmussen, and the logic behind that is there are bigger prizes on the East Coast for 3-year-old fillies than there are on the West Coast throughout the year. So Midnight Bisou is going to stay at Churchill Downs, and she's going to be going out for Steve Asmussen going forward. I have a horse that I liked her in this race, and I like her even more coming out of it. I think Eskimo Kisses. She lost momentum at a very key juncture in this race. Go back and watch the replay. She's warming up on the inside. She's getting the standard Corey Lannery ride. And you live by the Lannery ride, you die by the Lannery ride. She just got a little bit stacked up at the top of the lane and lost the momentum. I'm not saying that she could have won the race, but I think it would have been a heck of a lot closer. I think she would have run third, and I think she would have been a heck of a lot closer to those top two. There's a race for Eskimo Kisses out there somewhere. I think Ken McPeak's got a good one. She needs a little bit of pace, but there's a race at distances. I'm already thinking Alabama. 1.25 miles. I think there's a race for Eskimo Kisses somewhere. Keep an eye on her. A horse that really, again, she's done nothing wrong in her career, though, is Monomoy Girl. Monomoy Girl, Brad Cox deserves a tremendous amount of credit, and he deserves everyone's sort of attention here because now he has fully stamped himself on the stage. It was always, when's he going to get the grade one? We got the grade one in the Ashland with this girl. Now he wins one of the biggest races that there is in the world, regardless of gender of the horses. The Kentucky Oaks is a big, big one to file away in your back pocket. Brad Cox has that. He's got a very talented filly in Monomoy Girl. 97 Beyer, 125 time form U.S. rating, winning the Kentucky Oaks. First grade one of Derby weekend was the La Troyenne for older fillies and mares going a mile and 16th on the main track. Let's take a look at that field. Not a giant field by any stretch of the imagination. You had a scratch in Ivy Bell. She chose to go in the Humana Distaff, which we already have discussed here on the recap edition. So you only had 6 signed on. Your favorite ultimately was the 3-year-old champion from last year. 3-year-old champion filly, Abel Tasman. She went off at odds of 3-5, and my goodness was she bad. Flat out bad. There's really no other way to put it. Salty is your winner of the La Troyenne. She gets the job done as the 4-1 third choice. The runner-up is Farrell, who is the pace setter in here at odds of 14-1, and third was Martini Glass at odds of 5-2. Let's discuss the winner a little bit more. Salty's 4 of 11 lifetime, over $688,000 in career earnings, owned by Gary Barber, Bakari Racing Stable LLC, and Chester Prince. Trained by Mark Cassie, bred by Seclusive Farm LLC and Prince Farm LLC in Kentucky. Ridden to victory by Tyler Gaffalione, I believe. I could be wrong. I believe the first grade one for Tyler Gaffalione, so congratulations there. And you see the pedigree. She was by Quality Road out of a Dixie Union mare named They Call Me Lady Luck. As far as the speed figures and details are concerned, 94 Beyer, 108 time form U.S. rating. So that's a significant difference. Now, Peter Thomas Fornatale has discussed in the past the sort of loose translation of time form ratings to Beyers. Roughly, you can throw a 20-point number out there, that the time form U.S. number will be in the ballpark. Very, very rough. 20 points higher than what the Beyer would be. If you go on that merit and that basis, that would translate to, what, an 88? That's considerably slower than the 94 Beyer that was assigned to Salty. Farrell earned a 91, Martini Glass an 89, Abel Tasman an 89. From a time form U.S. standpoint, Farrell 106, Martini Glass 105, Abel Tasman 105. When you look and see how fast these fillies came home, you have a horse like Salty who came home in 30:69. Everyone else crawled home. Farrell, who cut out the fractions, came home just as fast, if not faster, than some of these other more accomplished girls. She came home in 31:26, Martini Glass 31:45, Abel Tasman 31:16. I look at this race and say, all right, first things first, good on Channing Hill. You rode a speed horse the way you were supposed to, and look, maybe you got away with a little bit more easy lead than I even anticipated, considering there was no speed signed on, but 24-3, 48-4, 12-4 for 3/4. Go out there and open up. Let them come and get you. He rode her beautifully. She just isn't quite good enough to get the job done against these, but now she's grade 1 place, so boom, that's good. Salty with Gaffaleon, she's in there. Well, before we get to Salty, let's go to Martini Glass. Martini Glass, for some reason, was wrangled, just absolute hammerlock out of the gate. Now, Timeform US has the opening quarter as slow. I would agree with that, and I would even go a step further than that, and I would say that the half mile was leaning toward the slow side of things, almost 49 seconds for grade 1 horses. not great. So at that point, if I am someone that is in closest attendance, and Gaffaleon began to do this with Salty, I want to go up and push the issue a little bit. And Paco Lopez, to his credit, on the outside, started to move up. The problem is, I think he just rode her entirely too confidently, where it looked like he thought he was sitting on American Pharoah. And no disrespect to the connections. And Martini Glass herself, she's a very, very nice horse. She's not American Pharoah. So go, push, go on with it. Now, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference because she crawled home for that final 5/16 of a mile. But I still wonder, was it just a little bit of an overconfident ride from Paco? Meanwhile, you've got Gaffaleon trying to move up in between horses, and he has to tap on the brakes on the far turn. With a race run this way, and under normal circumstances, that would almost be a complete sign-off. You got no chance to win this race. But I think it was partially how game Salty was, and partially how much everyone else was basically trying to lose this race. Because Gaffaleon persevered, and Salty, she did not want to be denied. She came on again down on the inside, and she finished faster than everyone else. If she doesn't get checked up there, she won by a length in the 3/4. Maybe she wins by 3 or 4 lengths. I mean, she was clearly the best horse in this race on Friday afternoon. That gets us to Abel Tasman. Abel Tasman, we had heard leading into this that her workouts, according to the DRF Clocker report, not spectacular. She just didn't have the same pop, I believe is what the term they used. She didn't have the same pop she did as a 3-year-old. She had worked with Raya. Now, don't hold Raya's Kentucky Oaks against her. She got absolutely body slammed out of the gate as well. And she had a lot of things going against her anyway. But Abel Tasman, we know what she can do on her best day. And at no point did she threaten. She started to warm up on the far turn in the clear, and I understand maybe the pace dynamics worked against her, and if you believe what Timeform US has as the main track being slightly speed-friendly on Friday afternoon, perhaps all those things worked against her and she'll move forward in her second start. I mean, she did technically come home with the second fastest stretch run. She came home in 31:16. Still not sparkling, but I suppose if you're trying to draw a silver lining or find some positive out of this, to me, this was a really, really poor effort. She was really late with the lead change, did that just at about the 8th pole, I believe. I have a hard time spinning too many positives out of this. You're going to have to hope that she moves forward second off the bench because this was just a very dismal effort. On the flip side, Mark Cassidy and company, they chose right. They had this horse, Salty, cross-entered in this race and the Humana Distaff. Look, it worked. They chose to run her here. She gets the job done. She's a grade 1 winner going 2 turns. Salty earns a 94 buyer and a 108 Timeform US rating, winning the La Troyenne. The 3 races we were going to talk about on Sunday, because how long we went with the Derby and because of everything else, we're getting stacked up. So those are going to be moved to the Montage. The stakes Montage is going to be, I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but it's probably going to be 15 minutes. There are a number of stretch runs in there. You're going to have all the other stakes races. Well, not the ones from Churchill Downs, unfortunately, for reasons that we know. But you're going to have plenty of races in there. You'll have races from Belmont Park. You'll have races from Santa Anita. You'll have the Steve Sexton Mile. You'll also have the Adoration from Sunday afternoon out at Santa Anita as well. So let's throw it into this week's stakes Montage.
The field is in the stretch. 3/4 went in 1, 10, and 3. And it is Highway Star who has come away with the lead here. On the outside is Pacific Wind. Pacific Wind up to challenge Highway Star for the lead. The two of them are right together. Tech-Elite is now in third. Pacific Wind takes over in deep stretch and wins the Ruffian. Highway
as B Jersey has the lead here and starts to draw clear from Shotgun Cowboy. Gervin drifting out but closing in down the middle of the racetrack. But B Jersey, ultra impressive here. What a dirt miler this guy is. And B Jersey is going to crush them in the Steve Sexton mile. Gervin rallied late to just net.
Well, we got good trade with this guy, and we take the lead easy. He's a pretty nice, really easy horse to ride. When he took the lead, he was really nice and comfortable over there, and he just was waiting for the competition coming in, attacked him, and tried for home. When he flew the horse from on his side, he started running again.
The inside with Mended. Mended has the lead narrowly. Vale Dory wants to duck in behind Mended. Then comes LaForce and falters down the outside. Mended just the leader from Shenandoah Queen. LaForce trying to alter course. Falters coming late. Shenandoah Queen fights on the inside. Fault lunges and Fault less this campaign. Wins from Shenandoah Queen.
And Santa Monica is down towards the rail as the field now comes into the stretch. It's Palino D. Lottie on the outside. Then Estrachada. Holy Helena is gaining ground on the outside. And in between horses is Santa Monica looking for a way through. She now darts down to the rail. Here comes Holy Helena on the outside. Down on the inside, it's Santa Monica. Holy Helena has won the Sheepshead Bay Stakes. It was close for Ticonderoga is down at the rail and moving up. The field is in the stretch. Here's Spring Quality. Here's Robert Bruce now coming up in between horses. Robert Bruce has taken the lead inside the 8th pole. Robert Bruce is in front. Then Spring Quality. It's Robert Bruce, and he's going to remain undefeated. The Chilean bred wins his U.S. debut. Computing, ranging up on the outside. Tale of Silence has now moved into 3rd. Vulcan's Forge is still in with a chance as they move down for the 8th pole. It's Cloud Computing on the outside. Tommy Macho on the inside. Those two are right together. Now a 16th out. Tale of Silence down at the rail. And here's Vulcan's Forge on the outside. The 4 of them will come to the wire together. Too tight to call. What a finish.
Treasuring turns for home, a 1-length leader from Pursuing the Dream. Maygirl, the fence, trying to get out from a pocket. And 2 lengths to Movie Moment. Console leader. West Palm Beach down the outside. It's Treasuring kicking on very strongly. Fabrice Blog leads by 2 lengths close to home from Pursuing the Dream. And Treasuring wins the Senorita. Second was...
Number of big performances in this week's stakes montage, whether it be Robert Bruce and his North American debut for Chad Brown, whether it be, we didn't get to see the replay of it, but Backyard Heaven, just tremendous effort for Chad Brown as well, winning the Ali Sheba on Friday afternoon at Churchill Downs. You look at some of the other races from Churchill, whether it was the Edgewood, Rushing Fall, ran too well to lose, but she unfortunately runs second to Toinette. Toinette looks like a nice one in Southern California. The Pate Mile was just I still have no idea how that result happened. As far as the other races at Belmont, you look at the Westchester, giant effort there. I know it was a bit of a blanket finish, but a good effort from Tale of Silence. You got to start to wonder a little bit about Cloud Computing. And then another big effort from B Jersey. And I think there's a scenario. He wins the Steve Sexton Mile on Sunday afternoon. I think there's a real scenario where you could look at that speed figure that B Jersey earned. B Jersey earned a 99. There's a scenario where that number, I won't be surprised if we find out down the road, that's 5 to 10 points light. Because not only you win by the length of the stretch, but if you think Gervin got back to, let's say, call it a low 90 or a mid 90, he was assigned an 89. There's a real scenario where B Jersey's number could be in that 105 range. And if he's at the 105 range, maybe he's not necessarily a true player to win in a race like the Met Mile if they choose to go there for Steve Asmussen. But that's a very, very talented horse, and he can win some races, and it's always good. I'm always happy to see one of my all-time favorites, Jerseytown, as the horse that has sired B Jersey. So B Jersey, an impressive effort there, along with a number of other impressive efforts in this week's stakes montage. Let's dive into the best performances of this past weekend, Derby weekend. We're including the Friday of Derby weekend, as we always do here on the Matt Bernier Show, the recap edition. Doesn't matter age, doesn't matter gender, doesn't matter distance, doesn't matter surface. The best performances from a buyer standpoint, A to Z. Let's start off 3-year-old males. Shocking. Justify wins the 144th Kentucky Derby with a 103 buyer speed figure. 3-year-old fillies, this is a tie. You got a couple of big efforts in there. You had Monomoy Girl winning the Kentucky Oaks on Friday. You also had Mia Mischief, They are both 97 buyers. Mia Mischief looks like she could be a legitimate force for Steve Asmussen as well. Again, 97 buyers for both of those girls. 3-year-old males on turf. Maraud wins the American Turf at Churchill on Saturday with a 91 buyer. 3-year-old females. Just spoke about both of them. Toinette, Rushing Fall, 91 buyers in the Edgewood. The older males. Backyard Heaven, that 105 in the Ali Sheba. If he stays sound, sounds like the Stephen Foster could be the next stop for him. Giant Effort, 105. American Gal, she is the older female boss for the weekend. 96 buyer winning the Humana Distaff at Churchill Downs. Older male on turf, Yoshida, winning the Turf Classic. We spoke about him a little bit. Sounds like he could be going off to Royal Ascot to run in a race like the Queen Anne at a mile. He earns a 106. And older female turf. Surprisingly, not any of the big stakes races. Fahan Mura, non-winners of 2 other than out at Santa Anita on Saturday afternoon with a 97 buyer speed. Saturday or Sunday, one of the two. With a 97 buyer speed figure. Those are your weekend's best performances from a buyer speed figure standpoint here on the Matt Bernier Show, the recap edition. If you have been listening live at noon on Tuesday, thank you for doing so. That is live.drf.com, livestream.com, Daily Racing Form, social media pages, at DRF Inside Post on Twitter, as well as the Daily Racing Form Facebook page. If you listen in podcast form, like most of you do, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Thank you to all of you that listened to and watched all of our programming from DRF TV this past week, all Derby week. We really appreciate it. I'm getting a little choked up. Excuse me. If you take in most of the stuff on YouTube, click that subscribe button and click the thumbs up. We always appreciate it. It helps everything else get out there. So subscribe on YouTube and click on that thumbs up button. Here is the DRF TV schedule of events going forward for this upcoming week. As I lean away and have a quick little cough. You're going to have a number of DRF Bets races of the day. You will have Woodbine plays of the day. You will have formulator angles. You name it, it'll be out there. You'll have the Watchmaker Watch, all sorts of good stuff coming up this week on DRF TV. It's the calm before the next storm, because next weekend is the Preakness in Baltimore. We'll find out if Justify can earn the second jewel in racing's Triple Crown and possibly have another Triple Crown on the line at Belmont Park just a few weeks later. Thank you to everyone in New York for getting this show taken care of. Thank you to all of you for listening. Until we speak again for the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show on Friday. Whatever you're playing, wherever you're playing, however you're playing, best of luck. Talk soon.